Well, we pick up exactly where we left off. Spiritual currency. Since I've been gone, I realized that the channel should probably run on spiritual currency. I like real money. It's okay. Uh, I definitely can do some pay to play now and then. Uh, but then honestly, it's the effort. And put a little effort into the thing. Marty, yeah, we're going to finish this just for us. I'm going to try to listen to more today. I'm in a much better place. I accept that my outside of YouTube life is going to take priority. Um, Not to be weird, but there's talk of me buying this place already. Now, I'm in no way financially able, but there's enough hype that I could get backers maybe to put me in a position, controlling position. It's too soon, but there's talk, which is weird. And I'm kind of willing. People have asked me for years why I didn't get into my own business. Um, I'm a very good cook. I'm very good in front of the house. And I can schmooze people like you wouldn't believe. Turns out I keep telling you I don't want to blow smoke up your ass, but if you come to my restaurant, I will blow smoke up your ass and convince you to eat something. I'm going to. That's my job at that moment. They're paying me to make you happy through telling you what you want to hear. I thought that was the worst way to do YouTube. So, I didn't. But honestly, what is manifested in the real world is undeniable. It wasn't that long ago I just started talking about it. It wasn't that long ago I changed my opinion at work and kind of, all right, I'm going to go for this. It's benefiting me. And within months, that bike showed up, raises showed up, success showed up, and now we're talking about a leadership role. Well, I can tell you where I spent my spiritual currency. And for everyone angry over on YouTube, yep, because it wasn't here. The only spiritual currency I can figure out to generate on YouTube is left-hand path, self-service. Well, we're going to learn that is not the way to go.
Okay?
Okay.
Most importantly, we need to ask ourselves, what kind of quality am I getting in return for my investments of time and money? Time and attention, I'm sorry. Okay? These are the spiritual currencies, and that's what most people don't want to give. They don't want to give these freely for a return on investment. They don't want to pay attention to the right things. They don't want to spend time on the right things. This is a simple chart of how our quality of our attention, okay, and again, this is in the aggregate, but it's created by all the individuals, how the quality of our overall attention as a species will affect our world in accordance with the principle of correspondence, which states, as goes the microcosm or the microcosmic units, so will become the macrocosm. Okay? So over here, we have a pure information stream. This is good information. This is information that is capable, that resonates with truth, and is capable of helping to develop wisdom or right action within the being. This over here is the poisoned information stream like we get from the mainstream media, from scientism, from the New Age movement, from government indoctrination centers called schools, okay? This is the poisoned information stream. Now, everybody's going to take in some form of a mixture of both of these streams. What the goal needs to be is to purify. Just like, hey, you take in bad food, you're going to have bad health. You take in bad information, the output through behavior is going to be bad. So you got to purify. Meaning, if there's valves here on the individual buckets, these are called the individual people, okay? And they're all coming together with the quality of their water, right? What they're holding within their consciousness. And that's all going into the big pool called the world. Everybody's bringing their bucket to the pool, they're pouring it in, and then they're jumping in. And that's the world. That's the quality of the world, right? The quality of this whole thing here is going to be based on how much poisoned, polluted information was in your bucket compared to how much pure information was in your bucket. Okay? So there's valves over here. We got to shut this one off, this brown muddy valve over here, and we got to open this one up. Okay? If we do that, the world will be purified, and we won't be creating self-inflicted suffering. We don't do that, we're going to be swimming in brown muck. Okay? And generating all kinds of problems for ourselves. So, how are we spending our time? What are we paying attention to? Is this what we're doing with our time and attention? Sitting behind the hypnosis box? Which means suppression of knowledge. Hypnosis is the suppression of knowledge or the suppression of spirit. Okay? Or are we going to devote our time to some pursuits of wisdom? Which means developing knowledge, converting it to understanding by processing it accurately, and then converting it into wisdom through action, through right action. And, you got to read to do this. People don't want to hear that either. Okay? Reading is required. The ancient Romans had two words, the same word, okay? They meant two different things in their language. The word was liber, L-I-B-E-R. Liber meant free, as in not a slave. A free being would be described as liber, free. It's the basis of the English word liberty, liberty, freedom, okay? They had the same word also meant a different concept. So the word liber didn't just mean free. If it was used in a different context, does anybody know what else the word liber meant, L-I-B-E-R, meant in Latin? Book. It meant book. Does that tell us something? They associated the Latin word for book also meant free in their language. Okay? And again, liber is the basis for the word library. Okay? Library. Okay? Where you can go to become free if you read the right books. And again, the world is our library now. We've reused.
There is the time. So the most important thing I've said during all of this is right now. You can gain access to this AI pretty easily. All you have to do is use it to expand a knowledge base instead of self-serving yourself up selfies and things that feed your ego. Feed your knowledge, not your ego.
United all the parts of the big library that were cast to the four corners of the earth. The mystery traditions are available at your fingertips now, which hasn't been the case at any time in human history. And what are we doing? We're playing Farmville on Facebook.
Dated.
So we have to ask ourselves, what are we spending our spiritual currency on? And are we investing it wisely for a return of real money, which is actually spiritual enlightenment? I'm going to take a quick break right there, and we'll pick it up with the next section in 10 minutes. 10 minutes, right back here to continue. Thank you. So natural law has been called many different things in different traditions throughout the world at different times in history. Let's look at what some people have called it. It's been called the law of cause and effect, or the laws of cause and effect. And there's a scientific connotation to this concept of cause and effect too. Even scientists will say an effect invariably follows a cause. And they'll also say things like, for every action, there exists an equal and opposing reaction. So there's a consequence when an action is taken. In the more New Age circles, you've heard it.
Okay, for sure, aligning rhetoric right now. I'm positive the consequence angle of life is one of the talking points on the channel. Why? I suffered through great consequences because of my actions. The new cook and I are very similar. Both Geminis, both ex-cons, both trying to deal with solid anger issues. Weird how that works. Both trying to stay out of harm's way and consequences incurring in our existences. Wow. Possibly I have a team member, if this works out, where together maybe we can figure out why we're always so angry. Because that's the one thing I got left is snapping off. Oh, that happens a lot. That's why a lot of videos don't make it up. Eventually, I just start screaming at the camera. I constantly tell the AI and whatever's listening what I think. Because if they're going to prosecute me for thought crimes in the future, they better get a full taste of what I think. Not some out of context statement that they take and railroad me for. Yeah, I definitely I'm steeped in the laws of cause and effect.
Referred to as the law or laws of attraction. Okay, I call this presentation the real law of attraction. So, however, there are some good things that the New Age community, and I don't tell you it's all bad, I don't make that blanket statement, okay? It is a religion in many respects, but however, there are some truths embedded in it that can be taken on their own and, that can be, value can be gleaned from. So one of those sayings is the energy that we emit is the energy that we attract. This is true. What we're putting out into the universe is what we're getting in return from the universe and what we're creating in our reality. Energy flows where attention goes. I just talked about this in the last section. What we put our attention on is what ultimately gets manifested in the world. As you think, feel, and act, so you shall be. Some of the teachers of different variants of law of attraction teachings have only put the first part in that. As you think, so you will be. No. As you think, feel, and act, so you will be. And most of all, as you act.
I wonder if that's a slight-handed shot at Crowleyism and the whole of the law, do as you will. That's as corrupt as it gets. You do no harm, do what you will.
Teachings have only put the first part in that. As you think, so you will be. No. As you think, feel, and act, so you will be. And most of all, as you act, so you will be. Most of all. Okay?
That's why the do no harm. Otherwise, you are, man. I needed to hear this one again.
On their own and, that can be, value can be gleaned from. So one of those sayings is the energy that we emit is the energy that we attract. This is true. What we're putting out into the universe is what we're getting in return from the universe and what we're creating in our reality. Energy flows where attention goes. I just talked about this in the last section. What we put our attention on is what ultimately gets manifested in the world. As you think, feel, and act, so you shall be. Some of the teachers of different variants of law of attraction teachings have only put the first part in that. As you think, so you will be. No. As you think, feel, and act, so you will be. And most of all, as you act, so you will be. Most of all. Okay? So it's been called karma. It's been called moral law, as I talked about before. And this is, captured beautifully by the phrase, what we sow, we reap. The seeds that you scatter, that's what's going to grow, and that's the fruit that you're going to harvest. So a very accurate way of looking at it. Again, it's been called consequentialism. That's another thing I could put into this chart. In other words, that there is free will, but there is no free will without consequence. That's called consequentialism. That would be another very accurate way of referring to natural law. And finally, the golden rule, it's been called. Okay? And it's been stated in the affirmative as do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. I find this much more powerfully stated in the negative, or what I call the apophatic variant. And we'll talk about what apophatic and apophasis means in a few moments. I think it would have been much less ambiguous, the golden rule, if it was said like this. Do not do to others as you would prefer not to have done unto you. Now the ambiguity goes away because people want to be treated slightly differently. Hey, a masochist might want to get beaten by a sadist. Okay?
Ah, right there's the core of why love is a Hallmark card and care is an actual mechanic in the universe. That's it. Because the broken love broken things. But they tend to not be care based ever. Care is that thing that separates the self from the whole. I think, right? I don't, yeah, I really believe that.
But that doesn't mean, do that to others because you like it. But people know what they don't want. They don't want their rights taken. They don't want their property taken or damaged. They don't want to be harmed in their person, They don't want any of those things. They don't want to be lied to. They don't want to be deceived. So don't do those things to other people. So let's jump into this is the heart of the presentation here. It's how natural law actually works in our lives. What are its expressions? How can we come to understand how this operates? There are ways of knowing, and they're through these expressions of natural law. So we defined what natural law is. We talked about the underlying principles that it's based upon. Now we are going to talk about how it works in our lives, okay? So we're going to build a chart of the natural law expressions in a moment. What these expressions are the recognizable workings in our life. And they take place through 5 basic expressions. Each of the 5 expressions of natural law have a positive aspect and a negative aspect. So that gives us a total of 10 overall natural law expressions. And we're going to build a chart regarding these expressions. Okay? So here's the expression, and then there's a positive aspect to the expression.
Sorry, I'm getting real life is bombarding me. I gotta take it. I am sorry. I know it doesn't seem like much to you, but one of them's chores at home from Ange, and the other one we're going back to a video, that Freemason video. And because I'm told I missed some important stuff at the end. And then I will leave the rest of those comments for that. I'm going to go back a bit.
What apophatic and apophysis means in a few moments.
Oh, shit. That's the part I was getting spaced off on. I actually think that's what I was talking about as the reverse, the negative doesn't manifest it. There's a way to dispel it by focusing on what shouldn't be.
Looking at it, again, it's been called consequentialism. That's another thing I could put into this chart. In other words, that there is free will, but there is no free will without consequence. That's called consequentialism. That would be another very accurate way of referring to natural law. And finally, the golden rule, it's been called, okay? And it's been stated in the affirmative as do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. I find this much more powerfully stated in the negative, or what I call the apophatic variant. And we'll talk about what apophatic and apophysis means in a few moments. I think it would have been much less ambiguous, the golden rule, if it was said like this. Do not do to others as you would prefer not to have done unto you. Now the ambiguity goes away because people want to be treated slightly differently, Hey, a masochist might want to get beaten by a sadist, okay? But that doesn't mean, do that to others because you like it. But people know what they don't want. They don't want their rights taken. They don't want their property taken or damaged. They don't want to be harmed in their person, They don't want any of those things. They don't want to be lied to. They don't want to...
So the other note is off this video saying I kind of wasted everyone's time. And I was like, well, it was clickbaity title. And they were like, well, the pros, which I think is funny, they check to see what it's about. And then what do? They lie to you. And that's the part. Even the little lies build up. And if I'm going at something raw, I'm going at it raw. I try to tell you, hey, you can turn the channel, or you could go watch this in its entirety, then come back and see if these reflections are actually, am I filtering my real life through these ideas, or am I wasting your time? I believe it's the first, but sometimes, now when I returned with the answer on it being clickbait, then we got a better, more evened answer. And that's the thing. You could be angry, but your first choice is to get to leave. You don't have to be here. I don't ask you. So it's all on our own choices at this point. And I'm doing it by choice, and I hope I'm joined by choice. And we will continue letting free will and choice guide the adventure, not any pre-planned bus stops.
Be deceived. So don't do those things to other people. So let's jump into this is the heart of the presentation here. It's how natural law actually works in our lives. What are its expressions? How can we come to understand how this operates? There are ways of knowing, and they're through these expressions of natural law. So we defined what natural law is. We talked about the underlying principles that it's based upon. Now we are going to talk about how it works in our lives, okay? So we're going to build a chart of the natural law expressions in a moment. What these expressions are the recognizable workings in our life. And they take place through 5 basic expressions. Each of the 5 expressions of natural law have a positive aspect and a negative aspect. So that gives us a total of 10 overall natural law expressions. And we're going to build a chart regarding these expressions. Okay? So here's the expression, and then there's a positive aspect to the expression, and there's a negative aspect to the expression. The first expression of natural law is known as, and again, this is what I call these things. There's no hard and fast rules. It's just...
That's why Mark is so important. And I hope I proved that or showed it in the Grok questioning. Because it is taking a lot of sources to give us answers. But I can tell you, Grok alone didn't include any asterisk with Passio-esque caveats or added information. So it still went with what the system approves of as these ideas, where I believe Mark is delivering these ideas to free you from the control system. I just truly believe that, because care was missing over there on Grok, and it is such a key component to this whole thing, unless all you want is negative effects.
Terminology. It's jargon to try to explain them in words, okay? These are unseen concepts and laws in reality, in nature, in the nature of the universe.
Defining the intangible is tough.
Okay, these are just English word terms that I'm applying to these concepts, okay? So the first principle of natural law I call the generative polarity, or in other words, this is the force or energy that we are using at the base level to start the process of creation, or you could say of co-creation, okay? We're co-creating the reality that we experience with the laws of nature. So you could look at the first first expression of natural law, which is the generative polarity, as the force that we use to set all of the other events which are to come, which are to manifest in our lives, into motion. Or in other words, what we use, the force that we use to generate or create the quality of our experience. That's the generative polarity. The positive expression of the generative polarity is love. Now, this is not what many people think of as love, okay? It's not familial love. It's not relationship love. It's not Hollywood movie variant.
I go with a Hallmark card. But my rhetoric is consistent with Mark's on this subject, for sure.
of love. It's not romance novel variant of love, okay? I call love consciousness. Love is the force which helps us to expand consciousness and become open to truth if we are in it. If we are in that vibratory energy, we become open to truth. All right? So here's what it looks like visually. I try to put a visual aspect to all of these concepts, okay? And people would think I'm going to put two people together kissing or hugging or something like that, okay? Love is inside each individual if it's present, okay? It doesn't depend on any other person. You can express love with...
Wow, I think this is where the staunchly religious might get uncomfortable, because I think this love and the feeling of the Creator are similar.
Another person, and there's no problem with that. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. That's a great thing if it's present in your life. The capital L, capital O, capital V, capital E definition of love that I'm giving here is not that. It is this force that opens up our consciousness. It's the flowering expression of consciousness, okay? So how I word this is, the positive aspect of the generative polarity, the first expression of natural law, is love. In regard to natural law, love should be seen as the expansive force for consciousness. It is the force which helps us to become open to truth and expand our awareness. That's the connotation that I'm giving for the concept called love here. Okay, that's the positive expression of the creative polarity. Now, the negative expression of the creative polarity is the exact opposite of love. So people will automatically think, well, that's hate. And it is not. Because the thing that puts consciousness in a box and prevents it from growing and keeps it where it's at is what? Fear. There it is.
Oh, fear. Yeah.
Fear is
I went with ignorance. I forgot. This is all a refresher. That's why I keep reflecting on the similar rhetoric. Because it's a refresh. I don't remember it all. Oh my God, I don't know if I'm an A student anymore. I don't take notes. I'm just assuming my THC-soaked brain didn't do its job. But then I do believe fear and ignorance are tied hand to hand. Most of our fear comes from ignorance. We're not wise enough to understand the situation, so we fear it. And that would be easy to give antidotes on, so I'm pretty sure that's true. But fear, I'm just for Passio's presentation.
For unconsciousness. Yeah. You cannot be unconscious of anything in particular unless you fear it. Okay, that's what shuts consciousness down. And here's my visual for it. Fear. I don't want to look at that. That's too horrible for me to contemplate. That can't be true. I don't want that to be true. That's all fear. Okay? The negative aspect of the generative polarity is fear. Fear is the contractive force for consciousness. Fear is the force which influences us to become closed to the truth, and it is the force which ultimately shuts down our awareness. That's why so many people are unconscious, because they are.
Hopefully Brittany's watching these, even if she's not commenting. I'll have to have Mom tell her part 19. 28 minutes in. This is why we do the drugs, Brittany. This is so our fear creates a state that we'd rather hide from, and it feels good to get high or drunk or escape. So it is fear that drives us to our addictions for sure. Fear of living within the world that we don't understand enough. Why? Because the truth of it is hidden. Mostly manipulated by others to control us, unfortunately.
The contractive force for consciousness. Fear is the force which influences us to become closed to the truth, and it is the force which ultimately shuts down our awareness. That's why so many people are unconscious, because they are fearful. They are fearful of the responsibility that comes with knowledge, and most of all, they are fearful of having to act based upon knowledge, because that requires courage.
So the truth of the world, we want to escape from it. Same difference there. You see, and I truly believe that.
They are fearful of having to act based upon knowledge, because that requires courage.
It's easier to escape.
The second natural law expression is the initiating expression, what I call the initiating expression, just my term for it. Okay? The initiating expression is the first stage of tangible and recognizable results which we produce in our lives after we have, quote unquote, set the ball rolling, okay? Set the dynamic in motion by choosing between the generative polarities of either love or fear, all right? So we choose love and something starts to happen. We become open to truth, right? Well, love is the expansive force for consciousness that opens our minds to the truth and awareness. So what do we gain as a result of accepting or existing in the vibratory energy called love? We gain knowledge, which is the acceptance.
I was thinking about the creation process, but I've already skipped ahead, I think. First, what energy do I vibrate with? What aspects of the world am I attracted to out of either my love or fear grows my knowledge base or my ignorance, I'm assuming here.
Truth. Since love opens us up to truth, knowledge is its reception. It is the receiving of truth. We come to know. Okay? So that's how it starts. I call this the initiating expression. Now, of course, there's a negative initiating expression if we are existing in the vibratory dynamic of fear. That would be the opposite of knowledge. What is it? Ignorance. Right.
Ignorance.
Now, this is what I put forward as knowledge. This is my imagery for knowledge. Okay? That's a being who knows themselves. You know, and as the mystery traditions of Greece put forward at the Delphic Oracle, know the self and you will know the universe. In other words, know the microcosm and you will know the macrocosm. Know thyself. The positive aspect of this initiating expression is knowledge or the acceptance of truth. Knowledge positively influences the quality of our lives because it positively influences our decision-making processes that lead to understanding in every area of our lives. You want to know how something works and ultimately create something good? You have to have knowledge. You want to know how a car works? Keep it running in good order, you have to have knowledge. You want to know how a computer works? Keep it running in good order, you have to have knowledge. You want to know how the human psyche works and keep it running in good order so that conditions on earth manifest the way you want them to manifest? You got to have knowledge. Not getting out of this condition without learning. Learning is the key, it's the answer. Knowledge is the answer.
No, knowledge is the answer is a good place to end number 19. I get ready to move on to the next. All right. On part 20, we will go on with the expressions of a natural law as defined by Passio. We're going to go back and expand our knowledge, I hope. And we'll see you again next time over at Mark Passio's Natural Law Seminar with Rollen Green over here at Reactions, Rants, and Rabbit Holes. Thank you for joining us. Well, wait, me, myself, and I. And Marty, he's out there. Later.